My name is Sammy Cobb. I am from Madison, Wisconsin, and I went to school in Eau Claire, and I ended up in Milwaukee about 10 years ago. I moved here for my job after college, and I just got confirmed at Christ King on August 9th.
So often people are confirmed when they're younger. Was there a reason why you weren't confirmed growing up?
So I have one older sister. My mom was raised Catholic, and my dad wasn't. He was like somewhat of an atheist, probably, I would say. So it was something in my family where at a young age, like my sister and I think we're used to the faith sort of being made fun of. So we never went to church. I think the one time we went to church was for my grandpa's funeral. And then I think the second time I went to church was a funeral like in college. So we just had no prior knowledge to what faith was, really.
So then, Sammy, not growing up in the Catholic faith, what led you to Catholicism?
So after college, when I started my career here, I just felt like those were the years that were the hardest for me as far as dealing with like this new adult life. And I felt like from my past, I was surrounding myself with people that like weren't the most positive or influential. And I felt like the people that I was spending my time with in like this new role I was in, I looked up to them, and I think a lot of them had in common a faith-based life. When I was reading books and trying to develop and learn like how I wanted to get better and what I needed to change, I just kept realizing it all kept going back to like my spiritual life and some sort of faith, and I felt like I was getting pulled into that. And I think once I started having those realizations is when I started talking to more people about it and opening up. So I'm very grateful for my mentor in my life through my work. He was actually my sponsor for my confirmation. Just opening up to him and watching how he lived his life authentically, I just realized like, okay, I want to kind of surrender to this and give into this, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Were there any key books that you read that put you on the path of the Catholic faith?
So I read a lot of like business self-development books, being in sales, and I feel like those led me to more spiritual books. So like I read a ton of Matthew Kelly books. The Rhythm of Life was like one of my favorites. I've read that probably like 4 times. And then another one that was like a little bit deeper would be the Purpose Driven Life. So those two were kind of like some good, like helpful triggers for me probably.
You mentioned your sponsor and how he's a mentor. How has having like a mentor affected your relationship, or what has he taught you?
I would say the biggest thing he's done for me is just he's got 5 kids, he's married, he lives in Elm Grove, and he just is like an example for me of how I want to live my life. The kind of like husband he is to his wife, father to his kids, people in his community. Like I think people want to spend time with him because he's so authentic. And I never felt like pressured or forced to do anything. Like he just listened to where I was at and like took me at, like as I was, which was very like naive. And I felt like I didn't know anything about church or like going to mass. And there were so many times that I was scared and I like didn't know what to do next. So he just listened.
With learning more about the church, were there any difficult or intimidating factors about the church?
So once I realized like, okay, I've been considering this in my head, and I thought like it was something that I could maybe do like individually, like maybe I can just be spiritual by myself and like read good books or like open up the Bible. So I was like trying to do it alone, I think, because I was scared and I was scared to share it. So for me, it was like, okay, I have to probably go to church to figure out how that all works. And so I felt like there were certain facts or like knowledge I needed to know before going in, which I was totally wrong in that because that's just not what it's about. But it was intimidating. Like I didn't know, if I walked into a parish, like, okay, where do I sit? Are people gonna like know that I'm new? I didn't know like when to stand, when to sit, when to kneel, like what do I do during the Eucharist? So there were a lot of like unanswered questions that I had, but I just knew like I needed to do something to start.
Were you scared to tell your family?
Yes. Yeah, I was scared to tell my family. I remember when I moved into my house, my dad, my mentor at work, he gave me this metal cross, and it was out on my mantle when I just moved in. And I love my dad, so if he sees this, I love you, Dad. But there was this metal cross, and my dad saw it, and he made a comment, and he said like, "What are you, a Jesus freak now or something?" And I remember like thinking in my head like, okay, this is a moment where like maybe I can have some good influence on my dad. And I just said like, yeah, I am. And then like that felt good because it felt good to like get it out there, and then to tell my mom too that like I started going to church or meeting with Father Philip. So those were hard moments, but they were really good. Like those little acts of courage, I think, really helped me grow. And what was cool is my dad was at my confirmation, so I would have never thought that would have happened, but he was there, and it was a really awesome day for our family. So
that's so cool. So can you tell us a little bit about what the confirmation was like for you as an adult? Or I know a lot of people don't really remember their confirmation, or it's not necessarily like something that they're desiring. So how was receiving the Eucharist and being confirmed like on August 9th?
Yeah. So what's funny is I think when I started coming to Christ King, I reached out to the Archdiocese online, because I was like, okay, I showed up in church, like now what do I do next? Like I didn't know the steps, like I didn't know what would happen, and I actually didn't know that I would be led to being confirmed. So I sent something into the Archdiocese, and then they introduced me to Father Philip. So I came in and I met with Father Philip, which that was like really scary, but it felt so good. And I was just like very honest with him. And I said like, I know nothing about church. Like I don't know how to read the Bible. I was baptized as a baby, I think, in the Catholic Church. Like I didn't know even what to say. But he made me feel so comfortable right away. He gave me a couple books, and he mentioned at the time that there would be this Alpha course starting in the fall. So it was probably after that meeting, like 3 more months of coming to church. I'm like feeling weird and scared, but I kept coming every Sunday. And then Alpha started, and that's when I got introduced to Emily. And then I guess we just started the RCIA classes through Alpha, which then led me to start the whole confirmation process, which for me, like learning as I went and like taking where I felt like I needed to learn stuff, like as it was coming, and not try to like overdo it. So as I started to learn more about like what the day of confirmation would actually like look like and what that sacrament meant, then it just kept me more excited to do it.
That's awesome. So now that you're like confirmed and you received Eucharist and you're like in the church, how do you want to make Christ known through your life?
So for me, like the big thing is like I really want to be proof that God exists for other people. Like going through the weird like turmoil in my life that I went through before seeking out the faith and finding God, like I think I could just like so relate to someone that could be considering it, how hard it is and like what to do next. And I just want to be like an example here on earth that like God is true and he's there and he's good and that he wants a relationship with other people. So if I can help other people come to this decision or decide to do that, like that's what I want to be a part of.
That's really beautiful. And you mentioned like for other people, what advice would you give to other people who maybe are in a similar spot where they're starting to think more about spirituality or they don't know how to jump into the Catholic faith? Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think it takes like a lot of like internal time and like questions to like I guess in a way get through like the battle of this. But I would say like if you're feeling it in your heart and you're feeling like that yearning or like that calling, like the worst thing someone could do would be to ignore that. So if it's there, like be courageous and act on it. And it doesn't need to be like super bold. Like you don't need to go announce it to everybody, but start with something small, I would say. For me, it was like so many little things, like little conversations, like little moments where I felt scared, but then I acted on it and then I dealt with it. And that really helped me grow. And then, like come as you are too. Like don't try to be somebody you're not yet, and know that that's okay. And like coming into the faith and coming into a parish, like people are so welcoming and they want you to be a part of it. So it's okay to be scared, but know that there's no reason to be scared. That's what I would say.
Maybe just a final question. Do you have any tips for parishioners on how to be welcoming or inviting people into the faith? Or I think a lot of parishioners, like we can also be scared to like share the faith with our neighbors or our friends, or maybe not realize if we're not being welcoming. So do you have any tips on maybe from just your experience with like Tim on how to share the faith with the people who are in your life?
Yeah. That's a loaded question.
Sorry, that was a big one.
So I just think, so going through like the 2 Alpha courses and thinking back on the period when I was so scared to come here and sit in the church during Mass, like I was so scared. And I think what I realized through doing some of the Alpha courses is that a lot of times people of the faith and like the body of Christ can sometimes be scared out in like our secular world to share the faith too. And so it made me think like it's kind of a sad spot to be living when there's like someone who's considering it but scared, and then there's someone who's living it but scared to share it. So I think like the best thing that we can do as parishioners in the body of Christ is to just live in a way that like we don't need to say anything to anybody. Like people will just see us living it out and being authentic. And I think if we can do that, like people will want to be a part of it and they'll seek it out themselves.
Awesome. So I just wanted to thank Sammy for sharing her awesome story. And even just listening to Sammy's story, I feel so filled with joy right now. And it's just beautiful to hear other stories. But I just wanted to say as a closing thing that if anyone is interested in being confirmed, or maybe you're an adult and you haven't received First Eucharist or been confirmed in the Catholic Church, or maybe you were married outside of the church but are looking to have your marriage inside of the church, then please feel free to contact me. My name's Emily Lynn. I work at Christ King and St. Bernard's as the Director of Adult Formation and Discipleship. Or otherwise, please feel free to contact Father Philip or Father Will. All of us would be happy to help you and to direct you to help you get to the Catholic Church and be closer to God.